So we're going to be covering everything that goes into profitably running instant form campaigns on Meta. Now, in case you aren't aware, an instant form is essentially just the in-app lead form that you can use to collect a lead's information when you're running an ad campaign on the platform. And it's actually one of my favorite campaign types to run, and I run it across multiple different client accounts that I currently work with. But there's a few key things that you need to have dialed in before running a campaign like this to make sure that it actually works correctly. So let's go over some of the qualifications that you need when you're running an instant form campaign. Now, the very first thing that you need to have dialed in when you're running an instant form campaign is speed to lead. If you think about the objective of an instant form campaign, it's a lot easier and lower friction to submit a lead form versus picking a time on the calendar and putting in information and booking a call. So you're able to get a much higher volume of leads by using instant forms, but a lot of those leads are going to be lower intent, meaning you need to call them as fast as possible when their phone is still in their hand. And that's why we set the benchmark at a sub 5-minute speed to lead. So within 5 minutes of getting the lead information, you or your sales team needs to be calling these leads and trying to get them to book on the calendar or conducting your sales process if that's something that you handle over the phone. And the second thing is you need to have experience closing cold traffic. And to put that in simple terms, if your only experience is working with referrals or warm traffic, people that have been referred to you from other sources, you're dealing with a completely different type of audience here when you're running an instant form campaign. These people don't know who you are. There's not very much trust built in between the point where they submit their lead and you talk to them. So you have to make sure that your sales team knows how to educate these leads and actually walk them through the process and dig into those pain points and desires they have to get them to book a call and become more interested in your offer in the first place. Now, just so I can articulate this more clearly, let's go through the typical journey of a prospect after they opt into an instant form on an ad campaign that we're running. So they're going to see a static or a video ad, and then from that point, they go through a quick form, they answer a few qualification questions, they fill out their contact information, and then you give them a call. Now, the thing is, you're never going to have a prospect at a higher interest or intent point than the moment that they submit that form because they just filled out a few questions, they just saw your ad, and it's still fresh on their mind. So if you can catch them while the phone is still in their hand, you're never going to have a better chance of getting them to not only pick up the call, but also continue the conversation and turn into a paying client. Because if you wait, 3-5 hours or even a few days, they've already went on with their day. Maybe they're discussing it with some of your competitors, and the chances that they pick up that call are going to be much lower. And that's why speed to lead is absolutely crucial when we're running an instant form campaign here. So sub 5 minutes. If you can't get to them within 5 minutes, at least send them a text message or an email saying, hey, we got your information. I'm looking into this. I'm going to give you a call at our soonest available date. Personalize that message. That also leads into the other aspects of running a campaign like this. Not only do we want to call them, but we also want to make sure that we're texting these leads as well. So from the moment that they opt into that form, what we typically like to do is set up a messenger chat on Facebook. So when you're building the campaign itself, you can select an option to turn on Messenger. And then from that point, it's going to automatically message your prospects with automated messages. And I usually like to hop in there, ask them a few questions that are specific to their situation. So if you want to get better success from texting your leads as well, what you want to do is look at the questions that they answered on the form. This is going to be very specific to your industry. Maybe you're asking about their business size. Maybe you're asking about their geographic location. But what you want to do is look at their answers to your questions and then use that to personalize the message. Now, one of the worst things you can do when you're trying to get your leads to book a call over text or any sort of conversion in general is to sound like a robot or an automated message. You want to make sure that you're reaching out with very custom questions that are specific to that prospect. You want to make sure that they feel like you're a real human on the other side of the phone. And also you're asking them questions that evoke a response. So just to show what this looks like, we run ads a lot for property management. So there's people opting into forms, they want help with their properties. They're filling out their addresses. And we want to use that information in the outreach message. So instead of saying something generic like, hey, John, I saw that you inquired about our services. Is there a time I could give you a call in the next week? You could be a lot more specific and say something like, hey, John, this is Jack from company. I just took a look at your Bay City property and we've got quite a few in your area. How's your occupancy been this summer? This is a very specific pain point that they're probably dealing with, and this is going to be different based on what industry you're in and what kind of prospects you're working with. But you want to ask them a question that's going to get them to respond because a lot of people want to talk about the problems they're having. You just want to make sure that you're asking the right questions to get them to respond in the first place. And for this example, we get property addresses into the lead form details, so that's something we can personalize in our outreach message as well. Now, real quick, if you run a high ticket or a B2B service-based business and you want us to step in and run your ads for you using the strategies shown in this video, there's going to be a link below this video where you can book some time on my calendar and we can hop on a quick call and see if we'd be a good fit to work together. Just click below and I'll see you there. Now, another thing you can do besides just texting the leads and trying to get them to book a call is sending them assets. We like to call these sales assets. So these are just assets built to increase trust with your prospects and speed up the sales cycle. And this could be in the form of a VSL page, FAQ videos, or really anything else that's going to increase trust with your prospects, answer the questions that they probably already have, and really just help the sales process. So just for example, we set up video sales letters for all of our clients. So this is something we like to send over text, if we're dealing with a lead that might have a lot of questions or maybe they go a little bit cold. And then we also like to send FAQ videos. So for example, for my agency, I set up these FAQ videos. After someone books a call with me, I'm answering all the questions that they're probably already asking on the call itself. And this is just going to increase the chances that when they show up to the call, we can get right into the meat and potatoes of the conversation and skip all the surface level questions. And you'd be surprised at how much further this goes versus just, someone books a call with you and then they get radio silence until that call date or maybe a few Calendly reminders. So there's really so many different sales assets you could put together based on your specific company in the industry you're in. You just want assets you can send to your prospects that they'll actually find valuable and increase the chances that they turn into a paying client. Now let's get into the technical side of actually setting up the instant form itself and building it into an ad campaign. Now in your ads manager, you can create an instant form under the lead ads form section. And from here, we typically like to go with more volume because especially when you're launching a new ad campaign on a new ad account, you're going to want to get a lot of data on the front end in order for the ad platform to learn from the type of people you're looking to target. And obviously, you can qualify them based on those questions you're asking on the form itself. So we like to do more volume. We don't really select rich creative. I like to keep sharing settings open and then turn off flexible form delivery. Then from here, the intro is quite straightforward. You just want to have a very clear headline stating your offer, like fill out this quick form to learn more about our offer, and this will be personalized based on what you're selling. And we like to keep background image off as well. Now, when it comes to the actual questions on the form, you want to make sure you're selecting conditional logic because this is going to dictate who actually goes through the full form and whose data you get based on the questions they fill out. So what I typically like to do is come up with the top 2 or 3 questions that you would ask any prospect before considering working with them, and then put that on your form. Now, obviously, the more questions you have, there's going to be more friction on that form, leading to a lower volume of leads, but those leads are going to be generally higher intent. So it's really up to you what trade-off you want to make. We typically like to use 2 or 3 questions total, whatever is necessary. And obviously multiple choice is going to be easier to fill out quickly. Short answer, you're asking for a prospect to manually type something in or paste something. So that's going to add a little bit more friction as well, but also it can really help with your responses and qualifying your leads. For example, we like to use this for property management when we're trying to find new properties to manage and trying to decide if they're actually worth managing in the first place. It can be very helpful to see the property before we even talk to the owner. And then obviously you get their contact information. Now earlier I mentioned connecting with leads on Messenger, and at the end of your form you can select this option, and essentially anyone who goes through your form is going to automatically create a chat in Messenger where you can text those leads. They can ask questions that will give out automated responses, and it just adds another layer where you can connect with your prospects that we find very helpful in the sales process. Now, whenever you're building out an ad campaign and you're trying to run an instant form campaign, you're just going to want to select instant forms for your conversion location. And then from there, you'll have 2 options here. We typically like to do maximize number of leads because we want to tell Meta to give us as many leads as possible, and then we'll handle the qualification through the sales process and through the questions we're asking. Now, one other thing that I see a lot of advertisers missing out on when it comes to the instant form itself is the end page for leads. So after someone goes through the form, they answer the right questions, they're going to end up on this page that basically says, hey, you're all set, you filled out our form, we got your information. Now, what most people do is they just drop their website link in here and just, call it a day, or maybe they'll click call business. But what you can do is actually paste your video sales letter page link in here which has your Calendly booking attached or whatever calendar you use to schedule sales calls. And you're going to get a small portion of those prospects clicking onto that page and booking time on your calendar. So not only are you getting all of the leads through the front end of the form, but you're also getting a small portion of them to go through the full funnel and book time on your calendar. And this is just how you can maximize the amount of returns you get from running a campaign like this. So just to summarize everything in this video, when you're running a lead form, you want to make sure, number one, that you have a dialed in sales team. Now keep in mind, a lot of these leads are going to be submitting over the weekend and off hours, maybe at 7 in the morning or 8 at night. Sometimes on a Sunday, we'll see a bunch of leads pour through. So it's really helpful to have someone in place to at least reach out to those leads, send them a message, send them an email, try giving them a call, even in off hours, because you're going to find a lot of your prospects are busy throughout the day. And when they're submitting the form is when they got time off, which is typically the same for your sales team. So keep that in mind when you're running a form like this. And obviously that comes with the 5-minute speed to lead. And then we have personalized follow-up. And I should also mention, you should be using personalization in your calls when you're dialing these leads as well. So whatever the questions they filled out in the form, use that when you're calling the leads. Like, hey, I noticed that you're in this area and you're dealing with this problem. How's that been going for you? You can use something very specific to their situation because you got their information on a form and you ask them specific questions. And that's going to increase the chances that they elaborate on what they're going through and actually are interested in talking to you over the phone.